The laws of the wild are said to be written in tooth and claw, a brutal and unflinching code where strength is the only virtue that matters. But what if that's not the whole story? What if, on a day just like any other, under the vast African sky, those ancient laws were not broken, but beautifully and profoundly rewritten? This is the story of that day. Our scene opens on the endless plains of the savannah, shimmering under the intense heat of the midday sun. Tall, golden grasses sway in the hot breeze, dotted with the iconic flat-topped acacia trees that offer little shade. It's a world of vibrant life and sudden death, a delicate balance that can be shattered in an instant. Patrolling near a vital waterhole, a formidable coalition of 5 male lions moved with the quiet confidence of kings. They were the undisputed apex predators of this domain. Suddenly, a sound cut through the air, not the cry of a bird or the rustle of the wind, but a desperate, thrashing struggle. Drawn by the disturbance, they emerged to witness a primal drama unfolding. A massive African rock python, a muscular titan of the grasslands, had coiled its body around a tiny, helpless zebra foal. The foal, tragically separated from its herd, was losing its life, breath by agonizing breath. In a world governed by the harsh economics of survival, an opportunity like this is a gift. A predator's work is dangerous and exhausting. Finding a meal already captured is a stroke of incredible fortune. The expected narrative was simple. The lions would wait. They would allow the python to expend its immense energy, suffocating the foal, and then, with minimal effort, they would move in and claim the prize. It was the logical, efficient, and brutal calculus of the wild. Miles away, a man named Ethan Cole, an American ranger with 20 years of field experience, watched the scene unfold through a pair of powerful binoculars. He had seen countless hunts, countless moments of life and death that define this land. His mind, trained by decades of observation, predicted the outcome with certainty. He watched the lions emerge and line up, and he waited for them to position themselves for the inevitable theft. But the lions did not spread out. They did not creep closer. Instead, they did something utterly baffling. They lined up, almost in a formal procession, just as the photograph captured. Shoulder to shoulder, they stood on the edge of the clearing and simply watched. An eerie, unnerving stillness fell over them. There was no growling, no licking of lips, no sign of impending action. Ranger Ethan lowered his binoculars for a second, rubbing his eyes in disbelief. This was wrong. This defied everything he knew. The air was thick with the foal's panicked gasps and the sound of the python's powerful muscles contracting, yet the 5 masters of the savannah remained motionless statues. Their silence was a mystery far deeper and more compelling than any roar. What were they waiting for? Ethan's mind raced through the possibilities. Were they wary of the python's size? An adult rock python was a formidable foe, capable of injuring even a lion. But 5 of them? The risk was minimal. He zoomed his lens in closer, focusing on their eyes. He saw no fear. He saw only an intense, focused observation that he could not decipher. This was not the behavior of opportunistic scavengers. It was something else entirely, an unreadable chapter in the Book of the Wild. As the seconds stretched into minutes, a subtle shift occurred. It started with the youngest lion in the coalition. Its ears flattened against its skull. A low, guttural growl rumbled deep in its chest, a sound not of hunger, but of agitation, of something akin to frustration. It was as if this lion, less beholden to the old, callous rules, found the scene of prolonged suffering intolerable. That single growl was the spark. It rippled through the pride, and the energy of the standoff changed in a heartbeat. The lead lion, the largest and most magnificent of the 5, took one decisive step forward. The python, sensing the new threat, momentarily ignored its prey. It lifted its head, its black eyes fixing on the lions, and a loud, menacing hiss echoed across the clearing. For a breathtaking moment, the savannah held its breath. Then a roar tore through the silence. but it was a roar of intervention, not of predation. The lions surged forward in a wave of tawny muscle and righteous fury. But their target, shockingly, was not the helpless foal. They bypassed the easy meal entirely and launched a coordinated assault on the great snake. The lead lion didn't bite, but instead used its massive paw to swat and claw at the thick coils wrapped around the zebra, forcing the python to loosen its deadly grip. Simultaneously, another lion darted to the rear and clamped its jaws onto the snake's tail, creating a painful and powerful distraction. The attack was a whirlwind of calculated chaos. They were not trying to kill the python. They were working together with a singular, unbelievable purpose: to free its victim. Zoologically, this was an anomaly. While lions are legendary for their cooperative hunting strategies, this kind of unified, defensive action on behalf of another species is almost unheard of. It was a display that defied scientific categorization. In a desperate, panicked frenzy, the overwhelmed and injured python uncoiled and slithered away, vanishing into the safety of the tall grass. The fight was over. The dust began to settle, and the thunder of roars faded into the heavy air. The immediate danger had passed. The baby zebra, free from the crushing coils, collapsed onto the soft earth. It lay there, its sides heaving, its body bruised and trembling, too weak and traumatized to even attempt to stand. This was the moment, the perfect opportunity, an easy, effortless meal for the victors, a reward for their bizarre battle. Every instinct, every law of nature dictated that they would now claim their prize. But they did not. In what was perhaps the most profound and astonishing moment of the entire saga, the lion's aggression simply melted away. Their heavy panting subsided. They looked down at the tiny, vulnerable creature at their paws, and then they looked at each other. One by one, they lay down. They didn't leave, they settled. They formed a loose, protective circle around the foal, their powerful bodies creating a living shield. Their posture was not one of rest, but of vigilance. They had become sentinels. They were now its guardians. Through his binoculars, Ranger Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine despite the blistering heat. He was a scientist, a man of facts and observable data, but what he was seeing belonged more to the realm of myth. He watched as a hyena, drawn by the earlier commotion, crept out from the bush. Instantly, the lead lion lifted its head and let out a low, warning growl. The hyena scattered. The lions were actively protecting the foal. Ethan began to write in his journal, his hand unsteady, trying to capture the sheer impossibility of the scene. From a foal's perspective, the terrifying, golden giants that had just engaged in a violent battle had become silent, warm mountains of safety. The world, which had been a nightmare of pain and pressure, was now quiet. It was a sacred, inexplicable truce, a moment of grace held in the heart of the unforgiving savanna. This fragile peace could not last. The foal was weak, and the sun was relentless. Ranger Ethan knew that without intervention, it would not survive. He had to act, but that meant walking into the middle of a pride of 5 male lions. He took a deep breath, put his vehicle in gear, and began to drive slowly toward the clearing. He didn't race in. He approached with a slow, deliberate respect. The lions watched him come. As his vehicle drew to a stop, there was no aggression. There were no challenging roars, no defensive postures. They simply watched him, their amber eyes filled with an intelligence that seemed to understand his intent. As Ethan cautiously stepped out of the vehicle, the lead lion stood up. It gave one last, long look at the foal, then turned and looked directly at Ethan. It was a silent, profound transfer of trust. Then, with a quiet authority, it let its pride away, melting back into the grasslands from which they came. Ethan approached the foal, his heart pounding with a mixture of awe and adrenaline. He gently examined the small creature, providing water and tending to its bruises. He then carefully lifted it and placed it in his vehicle. For the next hour, he tracked the foal's family, finally spotting the black and white stripes of the herd by another waterhole. He opened the door, and the foal, now stronger, stumbled out and trotted directly toward its mother, who greeted it with anxious, loving nudges. The family was whole again. What Ranger Ethan witnessed that day was not nature's law being broken. It was a glimpse of its capacity to evolve. It was a powerful testament that the rules of the wild are perhaps more like guidelines, capable of being rewritten by something that looks extraordinarily like empathy. On that sun-drenched morning, 5 predators chose to be protectors. They taught us that compassion is not a uniquely human trait, and that even in the heart of the wildest places on Earth, there is room for breathtaking, unbelievable grace.